Now I'm going to hand over to Professor Marcia Wilson, and Professor Marcia Wilson will now introduce the Vice Chancellor of the Open University. Over to you, Prof. Marcia.
Thanks, Bernadine. Good morning, everyone. And Bernadine, thank you for those very kind words. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure to work with you over the years. So my name is Marcia Wilson. I'm a professor and Dean of Equality, Diversity and Inclusion at the Open University. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to you all, especially for those of you who are joining us for the first time. This is my fourth conference and it just gets better each year. So I'd like to take this opportunity to commend Dr. Bernadine for the outstanding work that she does every year in making this happen and bringing us together to share insights and help us navigate our way through the Academy. About 7 months ago, I left my job of 13 years and joined the Open University. And one of the reasons why I joined was because of the leadership. It was very important to me to work with a leader who has a vision for a different type of educational experience that is an inclusive one and based on equity. Tim has been very supportive of our EDI agenda and is a strong advocate for addressing racial inequalities within our institution as well as across the sector. Tim has held a number of senior positions, including serving as the VC of Middlesex University before being appointed VC of the OU in October 2019. Tim co-founded charitable enterprises such as Community Technical Aid and the Oxford Dementia Centre. As VC, Tim is the Chief Academic and Administrative Officer of the University, responsible for providing strategic leadership through his senior leadership executive team, championing the interests of the institution at the highest levels with government, policymakers and funders, and ensuring long-term financial and operational sustainability of the OU. I am proud to work alongside Professor Tim Blackman, and I am proud that he has accepted the invitation to provide us with the opening address. Thank you. Over to you, Tim.
Thanks, Marcia, and thanks for that introduction. And I'm proud to work alongside you too. And Bernadine, thank you for your introduction too and your personal story, which was so powerful. And I'm not going to be able to match that, but I will try. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining the conference today. And let me just acknowledge what an amazing person Bernadine is, promoting women and Black people in science, undertaking charitable and mentoring work that's making a real difference to so many lives, and founding this inspired and successful series of conferences. I was just talking to her, as she mentioned, on Wednesday, and she also told me very proudly about the success of the first year of her students on the new biomedical science degree at the University of West London, which was tremendous to hear. I've been told that this conference, we've all heard, is in its 5th year. It was fully booked within 3 weeks, which is pretty incredible. And there's been a long waiting list. And that says a lot about the need for the sessions and the discussions that you'll be having today. And I'd like to thank everyone who's put their time and commitment into the arrangements for the day. The Open University is delighted to co-host this year's event with the University of West London. And it's good to hear Anthony too. Hi, Anthony, good to meet you over a screen. I'd like to extend my thanks to Bernadine for helping organise the conference. It's her baby, and to Marcia, who led the OU's engagement. I'm absolutely delighted that Marcia chose to come to join us at the OU in a new Dean role in my office and to take forward our equality, diversity and inclusion agenda, because we have a lot of work to do. As I'm sure you'll agree, Bernardine and Marcia have put together an excellent lineup of topics and speakers. I think it's important, though, to just spend a moment reflecting on my position. Despite my surname, Blackman, I am a white man. That surname, by the way, has Danish Viking origins from the Danish Viking settlement centuries ago of southern Scotland, where my father was from. And it may be a translation of the old Anglo-Saxon word black, B-L-A-C, which actually means fair or pale. Very confusing, but a reminder that Britain's story has long been one of migrants, of Romans, of Vikings, of Celts, of Normans, of Jews, of Indians, of Chinese, of Africans and more. We're an immigrant nation. My first memory of an encounter with someone whose colour was not similar to mine was as a small boy holding my mum's hand, walking along the street in my hometown of Gravesend. The date was probably around 1961, 1962, which ages me a bit. I was frightened by someone I saw in the street and I burst out crying. My mum consoled me, saying, "It's just a man sweeping the street." The man was a Sikh with a turban, a beard and a large moustache. Quite old. I can see him now with his broom, looking up to see why this little boy was crying. He'd frightened me because for me, he was very other. About 15 years after that experience, I chose to write my undergraduate dissertation about Gravesend's Sikh community. My focus was on racial disadvantage, why that Sikh man was a road sweeper, why his extended family was almost certainly crowded into private rented accommodation in one of the poorest parts of town, and why, despite intense housing need, his family would not then have been eligible for social housing, because at the time that needed demonstration of local connection, more or less guaranteeing to keep social housing estates white. A lot has improved since then, but the sad thing is that my conclusion in that dissertation, written in 1978, could be the same now. My focus was on housing, but this is what I wrote in my conclusion. I wrote, in addition to the new race relations legislation, and that was the 1976 Race Relations Act at the time, I said a much broader range of policies is needed to combat racial disadvantage in recognition of the fact that race is of central rather than peripheral importance in the development of a just society. Let's just fast forward to 2015, which was the last year I worked at the OU as a Pro-Vice Chancellor before going as VC to Middlesex University. I remember two things from that last year at the OU before I came back as VC, and those two things are very relevant for today, I think. The first was a comment made to me by an American guest at one of our graduation ceremonies about how white our graduates were. This is changing, but the fact is also that our graduates are whiter than our new students. This is partly because we're now attracting more Black and Asian students and they've yet to graduate, but it's also because those students are more likely not to make it to graduation. And that's an issue we are determined to tackle. The second recollection is the analysis we did of our 2014 REF submission and the issue that Black and Asian academics were far less likely to be in that submission than our white academics. I met with groups of our Black colleagues to discuss this, and what was really interesting and important is that this was for them in large measure a problem of intersectionality. For sure, they all had examples of racism to share, but what they were most concerned about is that they were disproportionately early career academics and early career researchers, often on temporary contracts, and they were caught in the casualization of research work that's still a problem today, or felt that they didn't have the same opportunities as their more senior colleagues, who were more likely to be white. Many of you will know better than me that although direct racism is still a problem in universities, there's also a problem that if we have types of work that are insecure or low paid, Black people and people of minority ethnic backgrounds are more likely to be in that work than white people. So the solution must include taking action on job insecurity and low pay in the higher education sector whenever we can. I was very proud of being part of the OU's decision back in 2014 to become a living wage employer and to require that of our contractors as well. And I'm proud too of the work we're currently doing to transfer almost 5,000 associate lecturers to permanent contracts. But there's a lot more to do, and Marcia would be the first to remind me that even these changes can actually entrench race inequality rather than tackle it. We need more Black and Asian associate lecturers and are currently advertising, so please have a look and encourage others to have a look. Just search for Open University tutoring vacancies. We're, after all, the Open University, the UK's only comprehensive, non-selective university, but there's a danger that this makes us complacent. The government minister who led the setting up of the OU in 1969, Jenny Lee, said in answer to a question in Parliament in the 1970s, this was, a question about whether the OU is a university only for working class people. And she said no. She said the OU is a university for everyone, rich or poor, man or woman, Black or white. But although that was a pioneering vision for then, it's not good enough for now, where positive action is needed. Despite being non-selective, proportionately at the OU, we have less Black and Asian students than other universities. Black and Asian colleagues are still underrepresented in our very senior roles, and we have an ethnicity pay gap, which is widest for our Black colleagues. There's a huge responsibility on higher education leaders like me to do something about this, to be as open about our challenges as our successes. My whole leadership team has committed publicly to the OU becoming an anti-racist university, but also to acknowledging that we have a very long way to go. We know that racial inequalities are affecting our student recruitment and success rates, and we know that racial inequalities are affecting our staff recruitment and their career success once we hire them. We need, without unnecessary delay, to put in place the actions that will change this. We've been doing some of that, but it's not been effective enough. Marcia, a while back, told me to read Barbara Trebagania's book, Silent Racism. And it's a difficult read for a white man, challenging what goes on in the head of a white person rather than just what they say. To deny racism is itself an act of violence, and it's certainly not good enough to say we're okay at the OU because we have targets and we're ticking boxes as we measure progress towards them. That's not good enough because we have to feel this issue. All of us have to feel it in the university, feel its weight and feel the responsibility to change it now. Although I'll never know what it is to experience racism, I will do all I can to create the conditions to end it in an environment where diversity matters because it enriches everyone and everything we do and makes us a better university. We'll continue to work towards removing the obstacles that stand in the way of Black and minority ethnic students and staff. We'll be critical and reflexive about our progress and have the conversations which, often uncomfortable and challenging, are needed to achieve change. We'll continue to encourage staff and students openly to discuss race and racism, to call out microaggressions, to name the inequalities we have and discuss all forms of discrimination faced not only within our institution or the broader higher education sector, but within the entire social system in which we live, recognizing its legacy of colonization, violence, slavery and exploitation, and building on the struggles and progressive actions that are also to be found in that history and depressingly are still necessary today. This is the only way we can create sustainable change. It's vitally important that universities recognise the critical role that they play, but so much needs to be reframed. The days of seeing the degree awarding gap as a deficit in black students, in effect blaming them or their parents, must go, just as it's not tolerable to keep selecting, supporting or promoting staff in the same way when those practices keep producing obviously unequal outcomes. This is not just a case of training or raising awareness, critically important though that is. It's a question of redesigning how we do things to produce more equitable and I believe therefore more successful outcomes. We need early career researchers from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds to come into, to stay in and to succeed in academia. We need that. Our society needs your expertise, your life experiences and your perspectives. For now and future generations, we need to amplify racially minoritized voices, engage with critical race theory, decolonize our curriculum, and create a safe, equitable space where all academic staff and students feel heard, seen, and valued. This is the future open university I want to see. And it's also why this event today is so important. It's a privilege for the OU to co-host it this year. This is not only an opportunity for you to be inspired, to be encouraged, to be supported, but it's an opportunity for us to learn from you. We want to ensure that you feel seen and valued within a sector that you should never have to fight to be part of. Social justice is the very foundation of the Open University. We were built on it, and I and other leaders here will be accountable for the progress we want to make. We need to be accountable in order to grow ourselves as sector leaders. We need that for our own growth. And so that we can go on and encourage and guide other universities to follow today and not tomorrow. Thank you once again to all of you for coming to the conference, to our speakers and everybody who organised today's event. I'm now going to hand you back to Marcia, who's going to introduce our first keynote speaker, Professor Gus John. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tim. You know, you can see now why I decided to move to the Open University, and I think it's rare, very rare, to hear Vice Chancellors speak along those lines. And as I said before, that is why I'm proud to work at the Open University. And also, please take note, those of you who are looking for work. You heard it from the Vice Chancellor himself. We are recruiting, we are looking for associate lecturers. You need to get that experience. So go to the OU website and please think about joining the OU as a lecturer. We need you. So thanks again, Tim.